to stand on my toes because he's taller than I am. Welcome, welcome everyone for this pretty much the first in-person public live event we've had in 2 years. And so we really appreciate you coming out and meeting with us. We are excited to have Mr. Herman Brown here. He is one of our favorite patrons, and we are very excited to hear his story. 55 years ago, Chief Warrant Officer Herman Brown was drafted into the U.S. Army during the height of the Vietnam War. Setting the tone for his fellow soldiers and his race, Brown tested the limits of his generation and became the first African American to complete the advanced individual training at Redstone Arsenal, Alabama. So if you guys will join me and welcome Mr. Brown.
Thank you. Good afternoon. When I was drafted, when I got to Redstone Arsenal, the first thing after I was drafted, the first thing my first sergeant said to me after basic training, "Brown, you are not going to make it through this course." Once I made it through, the first sergeant came up to me and told me he wanted to be the first to congratulate me. It was very uplifting to hear that from my first sergeant. It wasn't easy being the first African American going through this training at Redstone Arsenal in Alabama in 1967. It was a rough time during this period. For me, as I endured being called all kind of names, the majority of the 52 weeks of school. One of my instructors made a comment, "Colored people are the only one on welfare." In those days, black was called colored people. When he was reported, he received no punishment at all, maybe a slap on the hand. Another night, a burning of a cross was in front of my barracks. The soldiers that were responsible got minimal punishment for their hateful act. However, I kept pressing on, remembering the words that my grandmother always told me as a child and coming up. "Whatever you do, son, give it all you got, and anything you go for." Those words came back to me through those rough times that I had at Redstone. That reminded me, I told myself, no matter what was said or how rough it would be, I was going to make it through it in my mind. Also, one of the strongest points that brought me through is my faith in my Lord and Savior Jesus Christ. He preserved me during these difficult times. One of my favorite verse in the Bible that went through, that I kept in my mind, is Joshua 1:9. And it stated, "Be strong and courageous. Do not be afraid, and do not be dismayed. For the Lord your God, is with you wherever you go." After graduating from Redstone Arsenal, I was stationed in Hawaii, Honolulu. When I arrived, I had a lot of pain in my stomach. They rushed me to the hospital, Triplet Hospital in Hawaii. They call it the Pink Castle. I was hospitalized for a bleeding ulcer relating to the stress that I endured my time at Redstone Arsenal. I was also stationed in Germany and Fort Hood, working mainly with the advanced radar system. In those days, when I came to Redstone and got to school, which I was the only high school graduate in class also at that time. And it was a time in Hawaii while I was working with a warrant officer that I realized one day that'll be my goal, to come and be a warrant officer. But with the situation of the color in those days, I thought I didn't have a chance, but that was my dream. After, later on, I went to be a warrant officer. I got it. It was a difficult time. When I went to supply for a warrant officer, after I was taught by another warrant officer, white guy. He was a W-2 and he asked me for a whole year. So I said, well, I'll go. And I went. And when I went, what we call PAT in those days, they asked me, what are you doing here? And with that statement, it gave me a lot of push to go forward. When I went to Fort Bliss for my warrant officer school, I made it through and I graduated in 1982. There's a list of schools that I had. The list is endlessly in the military. Plus, later on I got college also in the military center. So this is what the military did for me at that time. But my favorite accomplishment in the Army at this time was completing in the March in 1972 the International 4-Day March in the Netherlands, where the United States placed first out of 14 NATO countries. I was selected to carry the American flag in the parade. I stood out because I was the only American, black American carrying the American flag. This gave me great esteem. And a lot of people came out and congratulated me. As we marched, they had people on both sides. And it's a long, long way. When we got through and came in first, we beat the British. There's 12 people in each areas of countries. And we changed to our uniform, steel part, walked down the street with the band, and they're making a movie of the countries. As Obama served as the first country black president, this nation cannot forget those who paved the way before him, fighting through racial persecution for their race and future. Today, at 79 years old, I hope people will realize what it took to get this nation where it is today. Proving that when Martin Luther King Jr. death, the dream was not over. The hands of many human beings are suppressed in the molding of lives. This afternoon, I will name a few of them that have pressed in my life. The first is my grandmother, Mrs. Grace Grant, with her love and care, who, if I would have not been here if not for her today. When I was born, the doctor stated to her that I would only live 3 months. She stated, not with God help in me. The second person is my aunt, Miss Virginia Adams. In the meantime, my grandmother raised me with 17 other grands, and I was the only one. My mother and father were deceased. So, Miss Virginia Adams, with her humbleness, very humble person, and protected care for me, give me the strength. The third is my cousin, Reverend Lottie Brown, who always encouraged me to press and praise me at all times before many people, even her congregation, when I wasn't expecting it. She was living in Nebraska, and I went up there and she did this. The fourth was a manager at Howard Johnson Restaurant when I was a teenager working after school. I did not remember his name, but I always remember he always encouraged me to reach higher and accomplish my dreams. Now my wife, my love and joy, she isn't here today because of some illness. Miss Kitty Brown, the most loving and caring person I have ever known. My love for 43 years of happiness and our 4 children. They are my 4 children are my joy, love and joy. My daughter Dawn, Miss Dawn Brown, was gracious with much patience and understanding. She used to play the piano for me when I came in. My 3 grandsons, also my joy and happiness. The past, people who I read about and researched about, they supply me with all the necessary needs to succeed in being the first African American to complete the advanced individual training at Redstone Arsenal in Alabama. The first is General Benjamin O. Davis, Jr., who was the first African American general in the United States Army. Second is Thornton Marshall, who was the first African American to be appointed as a Supreme Court judge. Third is Jackie Robinson, who was the first American to play Major League Basketball. But Jackie Robinson was a 2nd lieutenant in the United States Army. The last person is Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King, Jr., who was an African American church leader inspired by Christian beliefs, a nonviolent civil rights activist, and at the age of 35 was the youngest Nobel Prize winner. They give me the endurance to make it through the trials and tribulations at the Army Training Center. To the young soldiers from the past that told me by watching me, and didn't get that, seeing me give them encouragement to succeed in the military. To the present soldiers, the past have been paid for your success. Just remember that it is never impossible, but it is harder. It is gratifying to know that the harder it is, the harder it is not going to stop you. So be true to yourself and be useful to the journey ahead. For that, thank you very much for having me here, giving the story of the time in the military, and that's just a touch of it. And God bless you all.
May we ask questions?
Yes.
I have one. You sound very grateful. You are very grateful for everyone who helped support you through that trial, that time. But at the time, you know, when they were burning the cross and you were up against a big force, were you always grateful, or was it very, very, I mean, I'm sure it was very difficult, but did you keep the gratefulness, or did that come later on after you made it through?
A lot got to do with this with my bringing up of my grandmother and my 25 aunt and uncles. Most of them have great faith. They always give me an inner feeling of things, if it does happen hatefully, to show love and kindness. My grandmother used a phrase, when they give you a lemon, give them honey. Like you say, inside, these things hurt, but I let love cover all things. And that's the way what was put into me. And that's what happened with all these things that they said and did, even with the cross burning. Any other questions? Ready for some more?
Okay, we can keep it going, talking.
Question.
Yeah.
At the end, when you were talking about the persons that enlightened you during your time in the military, like Jackie Robinson and Thurgood Marshall and Martin Luther King, they also praised about turn the other cheek. Were there incidents where you, especially when you're not in class or you just out of God or whatever, had an instance where you had to turn the cheek?
Good thing you asked that question. There were several incidents that I had to turn the other cheek. Especially going down to in Hudson and the mall and trying to go to a restaurant. And there were a lot of things said that I could take action. Wanted to, but I remember and was calm about it and turned, like you said, turn the other cheek. But there were instances like that, especially going out. One of the things I didn't say, without bringing up since you asked that, my school was 52 weeks, as you know, was a year. And I started in 67 and ended up in the end of 68. When Martin Luther King Jr. got shot helping the garbage people, there were people coming and saying, what's going to happen to Reagan? What's going to happen to his dream? It really, there was a lot of things. But we couldn't go anywhere. We were stationed at poles and couldn't know what to do. That one incident happened at that time. assassinated, and they talking all this stuff. Okay, any other questions? Did that answer your question? Any other questions? Yes, ma'am. Oh.
Thank you, sir, for your grace and your humility and for your service. And I often ask this question of my parents and my grandparents. The events and the things that you went through during your time in service in the days before. Looking at the generation now and the things that we see happening in our current events now, honestly, how does that make you feel? Does that make you feel?
Sometimes it hurts because, you know, you were there and you just try to do your best and have patience to make the table red. Okay? And you do that, and you get the situation kind of out. And you become sort of in one person age with the same question. And what I told that person, when we were here at that time, these people have, you know, computers and all this stuff, and it's a different generation. You still can see them, but all these things that they have influence show us. Some of them, most of them, but you do have. And if you do have something to do, that's the because you can't touch everything. Some, it is not the yes, sir.
Just dig it.
I have to go to her. Oh, that thing.
Use your voice.
Oh, okay. Okay. Yes, sir.
How many years were you in the service, and while you were in that service, how much did it change from when you started to when you got out?
That's a good question. When I got in the service, there was a lot of discipline. You know, a lot of discipline. I'm not talking about the racial part, but there was a lot of difference. Discipline. And when I was getting out, and that's a different story, but when I was going to get out, the general told me I wasn't, so I had to go to silent, but anyway. So, and I saw a big change in the discipline of the soldiers. And that come to another time. Like the young lady just asked me, what started happening there? Did you start having this time? And there's a different generation, okay? A different level. And standing up for something, change. Something like politics, okay? And it changed. And when that changed, then it changed the attitude and thing of the soldiers. They could get by more by having, we had a young man, young soldier, and his father was close to a senator or something, and he got a reprimand for something, not doing what was happening. He wrote his father wrote back and came and talked to the commander, the post commander, and they changed his punishment. Okay? So, I'm trying to show you how things happen. Because at this time when I was here, and here is another time. Okay? Does that answer your question, sir? Okay. Now, is there any other question?
where you say that things have changed, but they're not all the way here yet. Do you envision, many more positive changes that are gonna take place in the military? And, you know, we still have struggles, racial struggles, political struggles. Do you foresee a brighter future?
That's a good question. As I go around and counsel different people, and I'm not good at a lot, but one or two, I see a lot of good in people, in some people. And with that, I must say that I see a brighter side than all the negative people see. Because there's people out there with a good outlook and a good intention of doing this, especially in the military. Because when they see me, and I have a special hat, but I wish I had it here, and they see the time that I was in Vietnam, and they come up and we talk. And so when I say that, I'm just not saying it. I have talked, and they have talked to me. So with that, I see a brighter. Okay.
And do you see communication as the key? You said you've talked.
Right. Yes, you must communicate. You know, if you don't communicate, you never have nothing. I mean, you never have a lot of things. When I go to a place, I talk to a person and they stop. And then they have things on their heart and it comes out. But if I have never take that action, then that will never happen. So you need to communicate, you don't need to. We live in a world, all of us live in this world. We need each other. Okay, there are almost 8 billion people in the world. Okay, each one have a story to tell and a gift. They just gotta find out what it is. Sometimes it takes a little push to help people. Okay. As I may, I want to say this, if I may, okay? I was in Mexico Bank here in Harker Heights several years ago. And a lady was, and I was telling her people, and we started talking, and her daughter was an A student, but hanging with the wrong, being with the wrong people. And somehow I had my little write-up. I had my little write-up, I give it to her. And it's not about me, it's all about him. And she gave that to her daughter, okay? Her daughter today is a lawyer, okay? So, that spark of one person, don't give up. Don't give up, okay? Any other questions? You sure I answered what you wanted to hear? Young lady,
Yes, you do.
you did? You have a doubt? If not, we can talk afterwards. I see a little thing in your eyes. But anyway, thank y'all for inviting me. And God bless you. Thank you.
Oh, you were great. You were great. Gosh, oh my